Um, Diane, let's bring you on. We're switching from health matters to space. Take us away.
That sounds like a good idea, Brian, which is exactly why I like to study space and keep up with it. I'm not sure that our viewers know that I used to work at NASA as a researcher years and years ago, so I have some insight into NASA, and it still continues to fascinate me. But I want to take us into a story of what is apparently the British space industry. So if we go to 29th of January this year, there was a tweet posted by a company from up here in Scotland called Orbex Space. They've been trying to make a rocket for a few years now. In 2022, they first got over £40 million from an investor from the Scottish National Investment Bank and some other sources. So that's quite a bit of money. But then on the 29th of January, it was announced by Labour that they have invested another £20 million into making a rocket. And an Octopus Ventures, we all know Octopus, is also a funding source right now, as well as the Export and Investment Fund of Denmark and a private investor. So all that is there in the tweet. What Labour is saying currently about this is it's part of the UK Space Agency. They're trying to do something with it, saying that we've never been part of the space race very much here in the UK, which isn't true. I'll get into that later. But it's all part of the plan for change, and it all has to do with sustainability. We could just play a few seconds of a silent video that I've put up here as well. This is called SaxaVord. This is where Orbex is going to launch this rocket, assuming it ever actually gets built. This is located on the Isle of Unst in the Shetland Islands at the very, very northern tip of the UK. So it's an island at the top of Shetland, which is way at the top. So we can see, it's very beautiful grounds. So they decided this was the perfect place to put a spaceport for whatever reason. I guess it does stay out of the way of things. But, again, I think it's kind of a shame that they've ruined such beautiful landscape by putting this spaceport in the middle of it. SaxaVord has had some problems as they've been trying to build it. It started in 2022 in March, but the problem was that the contractors that were there originally were being sent home because they didn't have enough work for them and they weren't ready for the next stages of the work. In 2023, in November, it was reported they owed contractors £1 million that it couldn't pay for building the spaceport. So the contractors were sent home, they couldn't get paid. However, in 2024, in December, just a couple of months ago, Orbex suddenly just abandoned another spaceport in the far north of the Scottish mainland, so right at the top, but again on the mainland of the UK, called Sutherland Spaceport, to go to SaxaVord. We're not really sure why. I couldn't find any reasons, but essentially Orbex announced that it would start taking over the construction of the Sutherland Spaceport, which was the original one, in November of 2022. And so that one wasn't finished. And then suddenly 2024, we've moved to SaxaVord. There's only been one launch so far from SaxaVord. That was in August of last year when a German rocket company launched a rocket, but the rocket engine exploded because of an apparently unusual oxygen fire. We don't really know why or what the issue was, but there's some detailed explanations that I've read. SaxaVord is apparently Western Europe's only fully licensed vertical launch spaceport, meaning it can go directly straight up, of course. And Labour leaders are seeing this as an opportunity to get ahead in the space race when the UK, according to them, again, isn't true, has not been able to make a claim in this area, and that they're saying this would be the first UK launch capability. Again, according to Orbex, the investment comes as the government vows to develop Britain's mission to regularly launch into orbit from its shores using UK-manufactured rockets, supporting growth in its expanding space industry, and attracting investment from across the globe. So we can see there it's pretty much built at this point, Brian. If you could go to the next video, which was Sir Chris Bryant, MP, the Minister for Space. And can we see what he had to say about it? Or what do we have up next?
If we were able to get launch to happen successfully with British rockets and British expertise on Shetland later this year, that will be a real strategic advantage for this country, something we could all take pride in, and also something that would drive economic growth for the future.
Right, so he's our Minister for Space. And one thing I want to mention about Frank Strong here, who is the owner of SaxaVord Spaceport and the land around it, is that if you look at Company's House, he had a company called Space 2030. And I just want to point out that the UN has a Space 2030 agenda, space as a driver of sustainable development. So potentially a bit of an interesting coincidence there. So what is Orbex Prime going to do? I think we have a short video from Orbex.
It all began in 2016, when we started building a new space rocket to take small satellites into orbit. It's now 2022, and it's time to introduce Orbex Prime. This is one of the most environmentally sustainable rockets ever built. And right now, it's sitting on a launch pad in Scotland.
So we're all about sustainability. If we look at the next slide here, we've got a little bit from Octopus Ventures talking about why they're funding it, saying that it's to move towards a low carbon economy, decarbonizing global energy systems and infrastructure. The founders are intent on greening finance. That's another interesting spin on the green agenda, the climate finance and so on. In November 2024, the UK Space Agency that I mentioned previously put out a climate change adaptation report. And if you read this report, it appears to be about fighting so-called climate change and finding things that could go wrong if climate change gets in the way of the satellites that are operating, that are going up there, that Elon Musk is putting up there, and so on. They're trying to say that some of the priorities include sustainability, which, of course, here's that word safe again, taking a leading role in keeping space safe and accessible now and in the future, and also talks about observing Earth. So the point is that these satellites that are going to be launched by Orbex, if it does ever get into space, are going to support disaster response efforts, track climate change, help us with navigation and communication, satellite phone networks, and space-based broadband. So, of course, there's Elon Musk and SpaceX. And there's been a deal recently down in Yorkshire with a company providing a £20 million contract to SpaceX for some things that is being built there. So a little bit more money coming into the economy, I guess. If you look at back into July 29th, 2020, there was the first ever space launch, or was it? I don't know. Let's look at Brian and Mike talking about this back 5 years ago. I think we have a short clip from them.
This is Black Arrow. There's a close-up of what it looked like. Black Arrow carried out 4 test launches between 1969 and 71. It was a 3-stage satellite carrier rocket. This was the first and only successful orbital launch carried out by the UK, and it took place 3 months following the sudden cancellation of the project. The launch site was scrapped as soon as the launch was completed, and half of the scientists and engineers involved in the project lost their jobs immediately. Now, why was the project cancelled? Well, it was cancelled because the whole project got messed up with or linked into the shenanigans were going on about getting us into the European Union, and that technology ended up being given to the French.
Yeah, so ultimately it went to the European Space Agency and the Ariane project. So that was 5 years ago, and now here we are saying, well, this is the first chance ever for the UK, Ryan.
Yes, fascinating, isn't it? When we do something and we should be proud of it, it's simply given away to another country or group of countries. A lot to be discussed on your segment there, Diane, and we'll bring that through into UK column extra.